Today we are going to go over all you need to know about Flexbox containers in WordPress using Elementor. I will be using these basic cards to show you how all the features of Flexbox containers work. After that, I will also be walking you through how I created this homepage section using Flexbox containers. If that is something you would like to know how to do, then this video is perfect for you. Flexbox containers can be easily created in WordPress by clicking the Add New Container button, selecting Flexbox, then selecting any of the structures you see here. I will select this single structure, and to your left you will also see the container editing options. Your container will be set to Flexbox since that's the one we chose, and your content width will be automatically set to boxed. Let me change the background color of the container so we can see better. The dotted line box represents your content area. While you have content width set to boxed, the width slider below it will only control the width of the content area and not the container itself. If you change the content width to full width, the width slider will now control the size of the container itself, and the content area will always be the full width of the container. Next up, we have the minimum height. The value that you set here will determine whether or not the container will grow with the content being added to it. So if I set the minimum height to 200 and start adding headings, the container will grow as I add more content, but the height will not shrink beyond 200 if I remove some of the content. This is especially important for when you are creating cards in your website to ensure that they stay at the same height. I created these three basic cards to explain the rest of the Flexbox features. Under the Items section, you will find the Flexbox properties. The direction will determine if your items are horizontal or vertical. It is horizontal by default. You can also reverse the order horizontally or vertically as well. The Justify content will align the items on the main axis. In this case, since the direction is horizontal, the main axis is also horizontal. You can set your items along this horizontal line at the start, the center, and the end. You can also set it to space between, which adds spaces between the item, space around, which is similar to space between but also adds space around the items, and finally space evenly, which evenly spaces out the items. Align items aligns your items on the cross axis. If your direction is set to horizontal, then your cross axis is vertical, and you can align items at the start, center, and end. You can also stretch the items to fill the container. The gaps property creates space between your columns and rows. If there is no column or row gap, then the items will have no space between them. Column gap gives space to the columns, and row gap gives space to the rows. The wrap property only works when you have enough items in your container that can't all fit. When I turn on the wrap property, you will see nothing happens. That's because my items fit comfortably in the space. However, if I increase the number of items, then they will start to wrap. If I turn off the wrap property, then they will all try to fit onto the same line. This is especially important for responsive design, as smaller viewports will require that items be wrapped in their containers for better viewing. When you have items being wrapped, another property becomes available, the Align Content property. The Align Content property aligns all the content across the axis. You can align to start, center, end, space between, space around, and space evenly. When you are using Flex containers, the items in the Flex container also have Flex properties: Align Self, Order, and Size. Align Self lets the item override the alignment from the parent container and move itself along the cross axis. It can go to start, center, end, or stretch to fill the space. The Order property lets you change the position of an item. Each item has an order of 0 by default. You can set an item to move to the end or to the start. You can also give each item a custom order for more control. The size controls how your items grow or shrink due to the available space in the container. I can set an item to grow or shrink. If I give the item a shrink value of 5, it will shrink faster than the other items. Those are all the things that you need to know about Flexbox containers. Now let's take a look at this real-world example. I have one main container with a background image and 3 sub-containers. The direction is set to vertical, justify content is set to center, and align items to the end. I also have a column and row gap of 20. My title container is a full width and the width of the container is set to 500. This container only has an image, so we don't need to set properties for items. The image resolution is set to full and the width is set to 100%. This way, the size of the container will control the size of the image. The links container is also full width with a width of 10% and a minimum height of 50 VH. The item's direction is set to vertical and justify content is set to center. To make the links container stick to the left, I set the align self property to start. The links themselves are simple buttons that I've rotated minus 90 degrees. The media container is full width and the width is set to 100%. The direction is horizontal and the justify content is set to end. Each of the items in the media container has a width of 400 pixels, and that's pretty much it. Just understanding fully how Flexbox containers work will allow you to create beautiful layouts such as this one. Do remember to subscribe to my channel for more tutorials like these, and feel free to ask me any questions below or just let me know what you think and I'll get back to you. See you on the next video.